Celebrating 2 decades of achievement, this is CNN.
Syria mourns the end of an era with the death Saturday of its longtime leader. Shrewd, calculating, and uncompromising, how Hafez Al-Assad's influence extends far beyond Syria's borders. And Syria's changing of the guard. The nation's parliament paves the way for a successor, Assad's son. From the CNN Center in Atlanta, this is Worldview. I'm Andrea Hall. Brian Nelson is off, and I thank you for joining us. Funeral services are scheduled for Tuesday for one of the Middle East's longest-serving and most influential leaders. Syrian President Hafez Al-Assad died Saturday at his home at the age of 69. Assad's son, Bashar, is expected to succeed him. More on that in just a few minutes. But for now, Syria remains a nation in mourning. From the Syrian capital, Damascus, CNN's Rula Amin reports.
The news came at the end of the day. Many took to the streets, trying to reach the president's house. Security was tight. Members of Syria's Republican Guard were out on Damascus streets. This woman says she feels like she has just lost a father, a brother, that she has just been turned into an orphan. The crowd chanted for the late president, called on God to allow him into his heaven. They also voiced their support for his son, Bashar, to succeed his father. The Syrian parliament moved quickly to pave the way for Bashar al-Assad to succeed his father. For example, the minimum age for a Syrian president of 40 years old was lowered to 34 years old, which is Bashar's age. The regional command for the ruling Ba'ath Party also moved swiftly and nominated Bashar al-Assad as a candidate for the presidency. The Syrian parliament will be meeting in 2 weeks to vote on that recommendation. In their hearts, there is grief. On their mind, there is concern. Syrians realize President Assad's death marks an end of an era. Few have doubts. It's the president's son, Bashar, who's going to lead this country into its future. They have their hopes pinned on him. It's only for the better. The late president had been grooming his son for this post for the last 6 years. Bashar is a colonel in the army, but for Syrians, he's better known as the man who has been leading a comprehensive campaign against corruption, which earned him a reputation as an honest, clean man. For many Syrians, Hafez al-Assad is the only president they have ever known. On Tuesday, they will participate in his funeral and walk into a new era for Syria. Rula Amin, CNN, Damascus.
As you might imagine, Israel is closely watching today's developments in neighboring Syria. Prime Minister Ehud Barak met with key members of his cabinet upon learning of Assad's death. Peace talks between the two nations, as you remember, broke down earlier this year. But as CNN's Gerald Kessel reports from Jerusalem, there are hopes that the process still can be revived.
With Israeli television providing blanket coverage of Syrian television coverage, Israelis learned of President Assad's death just as soon as Syrians themselves. The news prompted a quick official Israeli response.
Israel expresses its condolences to the Syrian people with the passing away of President Hafez al-Assad. Israel has constantly strived for peace with Syria and will continue with this policy in the future as well. For us, peace and tranquility in our borders with Syria and Lebanon is a vital interest, and we hope that this also will be Syrian interest as well.
On the Golan Heights, under Israeli control since 1967, black flags were raised immediately in Druze Syrian villages. But for the past quarter century, President Assad had ensured that Golan front with Israel remained quiet. It's Israel's border with Lebanon, where Syria is regarded as the main power broker, and from where Israel only recently withdrew its army after a long occupation, that there's concern about a vacuum and about stability. But also new hopes. Under U.S. auspices, there had been an attempt to conclude a full Israeli-Syrian peace. Prime Minister Ehud Barak having talks with Syria's Foreign Minister Farouk al-Sharrah. The fruitless Clinton-Assad meeting dead-ended that effort, leaving Mr. Barak still apparently believing President Assad could carry through such a deal if he chose. But with Israel more uncertain than ever that the Syrian leader had completed a transition from enemy to strategic peace partner.
There was some kind of a dissonance in President Assad's attitude towards Israel. Somehow he wanted to make peace, but was not ready to make the last step. And maybe in the future, his successor